Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii. She joins us from Washington, D.C. this morning. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us right now.
Aloha, George. Good morning.
I want to begin. You've taken on the idea, you said running for president, to end regime change wars. I wonder what you thought about that line from Governor Hickenlooper's speech that he said some Democrats are recoiling from past American foreign policy mistakes by looking to withdraw from our global leadership role. Does that apply to you?
No, it doesn't. My focus has been coming from my experience. I enlisted in the Army National Guard after the terrorist attack on 9/11, served as a soldier for over 16 years and deployed twice to the Middle East. In Congress, have served for over 6 years on both the Foreign Affairs and the Armed Services Committee, and bring that experience to the forefront, where as president, I will end these counterproductive and wasteful regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and nuclear arms race, recognizing how wasteful and costly these are, and take the trillions of dollars that we've been spending, would continue to spend, and invest those resources on serving the needs of the American people, things like health care, education, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, protecting our environment. There are many urgent needs here that we need to address, and we've got to get our priorities straight.
You resigned your DNC post back in 2016 because you thought Hillary Clinton had a hawkish, interventionist foreign policy. Does that apply to her colleague in the Obama administration, former Vice President Biden?
We'll see what Vice President Biden's foreign policy vision is for this country. We may agree on some issues, disagree on others. The problem that I have seen is that across both Democrat and Republican administrations, and especially in this Trump administration, where right now he is leading us down this dangerous path towards a war with Iran.
He says he doesn't want it.
He says he doesn't want it, but the actions of him and his administration, people like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, tell us a very different story. They are setting the stage for a war with Iran that would prove to be far more costly, far more devastating and dangerous than anything that we saw in the Iraq War, a war that I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw firsthand the high human cost of war.
Well, one of the actions they took this week was evacuating, as you know, our diplomatic posts in Iraq because they were concerned, based on the intelligence, that Iran may be looking to strike U.S. interests. You don't buy it?
I don't. We heard conflicting stories coming from the British commander, who is the co-commander of the fight against ISIS and al-Qaeda there in Iraq and Syria, saying, hey, he hadn't seen an escalation of tensions or threats coming from these Iraqi or these Shia militia serving in Iraq. I think what we're seeing, unfortunately, is what looks a lot like people in the Trump administration trying to create a pretext or an excuse for us to go to war against Iran, a war that would actually undermine our national security, cost us countless American lives, cost civilian lives across the region, exacerbate the refugee crisis in Europe, and it would actually make us less safe by strengthening terrorist groups like ISIS and al-Qaeda.
You've said we have to end the new Cold War, and you have taken a notably softer line on Vladimir Putin and Russia than some other Democrats and Republicans. I want to put up a headline from the Daily Beast this week that said Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being boosted by Putin apologists. And, in the past, you met with Assad, you defended Russian military operations in Syria, you opposed the arrest of Julian Assange, suggested that Russian election meddling is no worse than America's historically. Do you believe that Vladimir Putin is a threat to U.S. national security?
It's unfortunate that you're citing that article, George, because it's a whole lot of fake news. What I am focused on is what is in the best interest of the American people. What is in the best interest of our national security, keeping the American people safe. And what I'm pointing out consistently, time and time again, is that our continued wasteful regime change wars have been counterproductive to the interests of the American people. And the approach that this administration has taken in essentially choosing conflict rather than seeing how we can cooperate and work out our differences with other countries in the world has been counterproductive to our national security.
Many Democrats have been tougher on Vladimir Putin than President Trump. Do you think Democrats are taking too hard a line?
I think that the escalation of tensions that we've seen between the United States and nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China, and you're right, it has come from this administration. It's also come from some Democrats and Republicans in Congress. It has brought us to this very dangerous point where nuclear strategists point out that we are at a greater risk of nuclear war now than ever before in history. And we've got to understand what the consequences of that are. It's something that we in Hawaii know all too well with the wake-up call that we had about a little over a year ago, when we got a text alert over 1 million cell phones across our state saying that a ballistic missile was incoming. Seek shelter immediately. This is not a drill. This was terrifying for people all across our state because there was no shelter. And even though that turned out to be a false alarm, it points to the very real threat we face if we continue to go down this path of this new Cold War, ever-escalating tensions, and a nuclear arms race. And this is what I seek to change, to build relationships that are based on cooperation rather than conflict, de-escalate these tensions, work out the differences that we have, the problems that we have with other countries, and also recognize that in examples like denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula, we've got to be able to work with countries like Russia and China to be able to accomplish that objective to keep the American people safe.
Congresswoman, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.